Good morning and welcome back to my channel. It has been a minute since I've actually filmed. I feel like I've had a ton of pre-filmed content, but I'm finally back to filming and it's a little overwhelming, but we're just going with it right now. But I wanted to sit down and film and tell my birth story. I kind of went into it. Oh, bless you. I kind of went into her birth story a little bit in my birth vlog, but I wanted to tell way more details and, oh bless you, and really tell the story of her birth. So I definitely wanted to make a whole different birth video. If you haven't already, make sure to go ahead and watch our birth video. I didn't actually get to film the birth because of hospital policy, but I did film right before, right after, and a little bit of the labor process as well as our stay in the hospital. So make sure to check that out. Linked up here. I never know which side. Here. Let's go ahead and get into baby Cecilia's birth story. So as it seems, all my births have gone so far. It started in the middle of the night. I woke up and honestly, the first 20 minutes of everything is such a blur to me. I feel like it wasn't real. It still feels like it was a dream, and I remember flashes of it. But I woke up from a contraction, and I've been having contractions in Braxton Hicks a lot actually, but nothing ever super painful, and especially at night it was definitely uncomfortable and slightly painful, but nothing to make me What happened was I woke up, I'd gone to bed, I'd been asleep for an hour, and I woke up at 12:30 with contraction that was super, super painful. And I don't remember, I only slightly remember telling my husband that I was having a contraction and that I was in so much pain. And then I went to the bathroom, and just I just sat in the toilet and I was just processing what was happening, waking up. I was so tired and definitely in the middle of a sleep cycle. So I just sat on the toilet and was just trying to process what was happening and trying to decide if these contractions were serious enough to be going to the hospital. They had been the most painful contractions I honestly had ever felt, because I didn't even feel really bad contractions when I went to the hospital with Sebastian. So it was the worst pain that I've been in, and I just didn't know if I was being a baby this time around or what the deal was. So I just sat down and I was trying to decide if we were going to go to the hospital or not, because I knew if I called they would just say, well, we won't know unless you come and we check you out, all that stuff. So I was trying to decide if we were going to go to the hospital. And when I got up to wipe, this is super gross and TMI warning, but when I got up to wipe, I noticed that there was weird stuff coming out of me, very mucus-like stuff coming out of me. It was not normal discharge. It was not my water breaking, because my water had broke with Bash, so I knew what that felt like, and this was so different. So then I started Googling it and I was like, what is happening? Because this is not normal. This is not what happened in the past. I just don't know what's happening. And I was very convinced that my mucus plug, that I had lost my mucus plug, and that's what happened. And so I was like, okay, but online it says it could take, once you lose your mucus plug, you could have your baby within hours or you could have your baby within days. So I still didn't know if that was okay, you have to go to the hospital because this baby's got to come out. So I just decided to play it safe, and if we were going to go to the hospital, I wanted to shower before we went. I wanted a chance to style my hair somewhat. I just wore it natural. I just let it air dry at the hospital, but I just wanted a chance to be clean and feel good going into the hospital, because I didn't get that with Sebastian. So I took a shower. I took a really long one, and while I was in the shower, I was tracking my contractions. So I had my phone and I had this app. I'll leave a link for it, or the name of it right here on the screen for you. But every time a contraction started in the shower, I had it like on the edge of the tub, and I would just go over, press it, just kind of like working through it, letting them happen. And then every time they stopped, I stopped. And this app that I use, it tracks obviously your contractions and stuff, but it also gives you notifications. Like if your contractions are lasting a certain length and are a certain time apart, it kind of gives you like, oh, you should probably think about packing your bag if you haven't already. This might be it. And then at some point it tells you like, okay, it's time to go to the hospital. You need to go based on what your contractual patterns are. So I got the notification several times while I was tracking the contractions that it might be time to go to the hospital. And when I got out of the shower, I just knew, I just had this feeling like we should go to the hospital. So I told Ruben that we needed to text our friends who we had asked previously if we went into labor in the middle of the night, or really at any point if we could call them to come watch Sebastian and take care of him until my mom got into town. So I told him, I said, you need to get in contact with them. You need to make sure they're awake. It was probably 1:30ish. And I was like, they need to come over and watch Sebastian. I think we need to go to the hospital, and I think this is it. I think we're having a baby. And so we got everything together. We finished packing the hospital bag. I'm so happy that I had so much of it pre-packed, because even with most of it pre-packed and my list, I still felt incredibly frazzled and scatterbrained as we were getting things together. So I'm happy I had all that stuff prepared. But we got everything together. Our friends got there to watch Bash. I had everything ready for them so that they knew exactly what to do, and we were off to the hospital. After we got checked in and registered and everything at the hospital, they put us in a triage room. So we had like a private room, we had our own bed, but it wasn't like the delivery room by any means. We weren't in the labor and delivery unit yet, like things like that. So we were just in this waiting area. And they hooked me up to track my contractions, track baby's heartbeat, take vitals, all that stuff. Then we were told we were going to wait. So they checked me when I got there, and I was at 4 centimeters, and they called my OB, told him what the progress was, told him where I was at, what was happening. And he kind of just told them, okay, wait it out a little bit. So we were told that we needed to wait, which was a little irritating, but I mean, it's not my job, you know, whatever. I don't know. And so we sat in the room, and as we were in there, my contractions just kept getting worse and worse. They were so painful, like the most pain I've ever been in. Like seriously, shout out to all the moms who do natural labor, because it was not for me. It's so painful and it's so hard, and I was barely there. I was at 4 centimeters. I wasn't even doing the delivery. But anyhow, the contractions just kept getting worse and worse. And within an hour of being at the hospital, I could actually feel my water break. And I didn't feel it like happen, because some people, they feel it, but I just felt the drippage of sorts that you normally feel when your water breaks, or at least that I felt when Sebastian broke my water last time. So I knew what that feeling was. I knew that what happened at our house with the mucus stuff, I knew that wasn't breaking water. But what I was feeling while we were waiting at the hospital was very reminiscent of when my water broke with Sebastian and waiting in the hospital bed for that. So I knew that my water had broken, and we were just waiting for somebody to come check in on me. We were turning on the lights, turning them off. I was basically screaming and moaning every contraction, and they just kept getting longer and closer together, and I was just in so much pain. And this is like the bad part of my labor experience, the part that I don't wish to remember. Finally, after like an hour and a half of waiting, and since the nurse last checked in on me, a nurse comes in and they're like, oh, is everything okay? And in my head, both me and my husband were just like, does it sound like everything's okay? She's literally screaming. Like, do you think everything's okay? Do you think she's okay right now? But anyhow, so I was like, I am in so much pain. Please tell me I can check in. This is like, I know the baby is coming. This is unreal, unlike anything I've ever felt. And it's my second baby, so I would know at least how my body feels during labor. So she checked me and she was like, okay, you're at 5. I literally felt like I was at an 8. I was like, there's no way I haven't progressed. So I was like shocked when I was only at a 5, but like I said, my contractions were unreal. So she went and checked with my doctor again. We got all clear to go up to labor and delivery officially and to check in. And luckily, they were very nice at this point. I was super annoyed with them, obviously, when I'm having these crazy contractions and nobody's checking in on us or helping at all, or it just felt like we were just kind of left to ourselves, like, who cares about you? So finally they said we could check in. They were very good. They got me all hooked up, my IV set, everything, so that as soon as I got to my room I could get an epidural, because I made sure they knew, 1, that I wanted an epidural, and 2, that I wanted it as soon as possible. I could have gotten it when we got there because the contractions were already bad. I couldn't walk through them. I couldn't talk through them. They were just so bad. And so I was way beyond that at the point when they finally checked me into the hospital. So they got me up to our delivery room. We got things settled in. I'm still screaming. I felt so bad. I just closed my eyes the entire way from the triage area to our delivery room, because I was so embarrassed. I kept apologizing too. I was so embarrassed about how I was handling contractions. I was trying so hard to breathe and to relax and to not be screaming basically during my contractions, but I could not. Like, that was just the only comfort. Like, just screaming was the only thing that helped. And then like holding my husband's hands and like pushing them around. I don't even know how to explain what I was doing. It was super weird, but it was the only way I could get through contractions. But it was just like, I just felt super embarrassed for how I was handling it, and it felt very public, like me being in the most pain of my life and then going through the hallways. So I just like closed my eyes until we got to our delivery room. And then once we got there, the anesthesiologist was actually called into a C-section. So they were like, we have to wait for him to finish that, but as soon as he's done, he will be in here. And I was like, okay, literally I don't care when he gets here, just as long as I know, 1, I can get an epidural, and 2, that he is coming and that he knows that I'm here. So luckily he got there within just a little bit and he put the epidural in. The worst part, honestly, about getting this epidural was not being able to move. Like I said, when I got an epidural with Sebastian, I got it so much earlier in the process. I don't even think I was 4 centimeters dilated. As soon as I felt slightly uncomfortable, I got an epidural because I didn't want to wait too long. I didn't want to feel any pain. So I got my epidural so early. And so like having a contraction during that was like nothing. But during the epidural, I got a contraction, and like the needle's in my back and you can't move, because if you move, there's the risk of, paralysis. There's so many risks, and it's super bad if you move. And so I'm literally like, oh my gosh, a contraction is coming. And the anesthesiologist is like, I'm sorry, you cannot move. Not 1 millimeter. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I felt so bad because I didn't have a very good grip on my husband's hand, but I had an amazing grip on the nurse's hand. And so I was just whoa. Why can I not say this word? Squeezing the crap out of her hand, and I was trying to squeeze the crap out of my husband's hand, but I just didn't have a very good grip, and I felt so bad for the nurse. But it was another one of those like moments. And I just don't look at her, felt so bad, was so embarrassed that this is how I was handling contractions. But let me tell you, once I got that epidural, so nice. And this epidural was so much better than the one that I got with Sebastian, because every time I got like a dose of anesthesia with Sebastian's, my legs and my crotch, like it literally felt like they were on fire. It felt like somebody was holding me over a fire, or there was a fire literally right in my crotch. It hurt so bad and it was very painful and annoying, but this one didn't have that. I did get really itchy, which was kind of annoying, so I was like scratching my belly, scratching my legs, but at least like I'm like I can do itch, and it was so much better than feel like I literally did not want to ever up my dosage or get another dosage with Sebastian's epidural, because the pain from the burning sensation was so strong that it was bad. And so I never wanted to get the epidural or get more, you know. But with CC's, so nice, so easy. So luckily we were able to get some sleep, because Ruben literally had not slept. He had crawled into bed like 15 minutes before I woke up with my contractions, and I had only gotten an hour. And so we figured we're gonna, you know, this is it. I'm obviously delivering a baby, like let's get some sleep. So we rested and I couldn't feel any contractions, and it was just so nice and just like such a relief after hours and hours of just really hard labor. And I hope natural mamas are not gonna make fun of me, but you could. I just couldn't do it, and I just have so much respect for anybody who can do natural labor. So anyhow, so I woke up and she was actually born on my little sister's birthday, so I FaceTimed my little sister for a little bit, and then the nurses came in to check me. They hadn't checked me since they checked me in triage. Last time they checked me, it was a couple hours ago. I was 5 centimeters, so in my head I'm like 7 or 8 maybe at this point. But they come in, they check me, and they're like, you are ready to go. Baby's on her way. She'll be here soon, in the next couple hours. I'm like, oh my gosh, because it was just moving so much faster than Sebastian's birth had moved. And so everything was just going so fast, and it just felt like such a whirlwind. So we started taking guesses as to when she would be there. That's all in the video. It's actually funny because it's like, if you look at the clock in my birth video, it's 8:20 and we don't think she's coming until 10, because I pushed for 2 hours with Sebastian. And so I'm like, oh, it'll be faster, but I'm still expecting to push for like an hour. We stopped filming at like 8:25. The doctors come in at 8:30. My doctor came in and he was talking me through things. He was like, do you feel any contractions, any need to push? I was like, no, I'm literally feeling nothing. And he was like, okay, well, I'll tell you when to push when a contraction is coming, and you push as hard as you can. We'll just do a couple practice ones, kind of see where we're at, see how long this is going to be. So I did a practice push. I did 2, I think. And he was like, whoa, she is going to be here. He looked at me and he was like, well, those were really good pushes. She'll be here any minute. And I just like looked at Ruben, and both of us were just in shock that he said any minute now, like we would have our baby here. And it was just moving so fast, and I like broke down in tears. I was like, oh my gosh, this is just so fast. It was super unexpected with how fast it was going, and it was just like exciting and crazy all at the same time. So anyhow, they got everything ready, and I mean, 15 minutes later, she was here. I pushed 3 times for 2 minutes total, and she basically, like, it felt like she just slipped out. And at one point during the labor, I did actually, like, they were like, do you want to touch her? I was like, yeah. It's so gross. But I, like, felt her head, because it was literally right there. So, like, while they're getting everything set up, I felt her head, and it felt like jelly. It was so weird and gross. But it was actually kind of cool, and I'm glad I did that. But it's just so weird, and just birth is just the craziest thing. Like, I just can't believe my body did that twice now. That it's just crazy. So anyhow, I pushed 3 times for 2 minutes total, and then all of a sudden she was here, and she was so perfect. It was just perfect. I was telling Ruben afterwards and like just thinking about my birth experience, it just felt so healing for me. And not that like Sebastian's labor and delivery and birth, all that stuff, not that that was like traumatic for me in any way. I loved his. I think it was just like her pregnancy for me was very hard. The first trimester, I have a whole video on that. I'll link that as well. I really struggled mentally and emotionally with being pregnant and towards the end of labor and just like physically throughout, towards the end of labor, towards the end of pregnancy, and just physically throughout the whole pregnancy. It was just so much harder. Sebastian's labor was harder, but his pregnancy was so much easier on me. And so this pregnancy was so hard for me on so many different levels. And I just felt like her birth was just so healing for me and just exactly what I needed. And I mean, we didn't even hardly touch our phones or the camera after she was born. We just soaked her in, and I just got to hold her and do skin to skin and breastfeed with her for the first like 2 hours. And I just feel like so much of her delivery and the labor process and just those first few hours with her was just so healing for me and healing for my soul. And it was just what I needed, I think, as a mom, to take this next step into this next chapter, this huge chapter, welcoming a second baby to this world. And it was perfect. It was a dream labor for me. I know that's not everybody's dream labor, but for me, it was like a dream labor. So just so crazy. Today, actually, when I'm filming this, is exactly 1 month after she was born, and I'm just, time is such a thief. I cannot believe I already have a 1 month old. She's just perfect. She's beautiful. She's perfect. I'm obsessed with her. Anyhows, that is my birth story. It was crazy. It was beautiful. So fast. Wild. But it was perfect and everything that I needed. So, anyhows, I hope you guys enjoyed watching my birth video, hearing my birth story. And if you're new, want to stick around, don't forget to subscribe down below. There's so much good, fun content. I'm just happy, and I just feel so blessed to be a mom. I just have 2 perfect little babies, and I love them so much. So anyhows, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.